So I'm back still working on this little triptych book. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but I don't have it all stitched down now, but this is all I've done is just some quick tacking stitches on here, and then later I will embroider on that. And then it's going to fold up like this. Now I could just stop just like that. I could just do the embroidery on the inside, but I got to do something on the outside. So I've been looking at my threads, and as usual with me, I bring out way too many threads. I'm going to set these guys aside. We'll do those another day. This is way too many threads. So I need to make some decisions. And I could, okay, there's a couple things I could do on the outside here. I could take all these browns out, and I could just work with the neutral, something that's just going to blend in like that. But I don't think that's what I want to do. And I don't think that's what I want to do on the inside either. So I've got all these kind of rusties and browns, and I can't use them all, right? I just can't. These are wool, and I love them. And this is some nice fat pearl cotton, which is also good. It's a medium pearl cotton. Okay, let's put these in some color kind of sort of families. This is both the most fun and the hardest part for me. It really is. I'm going to save aside the wool because I think I will do that, probably use that with knots, and that will go on after I get my beloved feather stitch down, because I got to do that. And I could also just do some running stitch, which I don't do a lot of, and I really want to do more of. All right, I'm going to take the neutrals away right now too, because I think they might come in later as an accent. So what if we just took a brown? This one doesn't feel quite right, so I'm going to put that aside. And this is a nice variegated, but I don't know that I like them together. So let's pick one, and I'm feeling the call of this color, whatever this color is. All right, so then I have to make up my mind. Now I could do some couching on here. I didn't bring out any brown, but this is kind of a nice kind of off-white thingy, and I could do some couching, but believe it or not, I don't know that I'm going to start with couching on here. Part of me just wants to kind of feather stitch all around just because that's my go-to. And then part of me thinks maybe I should do something different. I've got these wonderful almost flower-like things, and these came about because I had a bottle. Let's grab a bobbin, that'll be easier. I had a bottle cap, and then I tied a rubber band around it, so I kind of crunched up the fabric, and that's how I soaked it in the tea or coffee or whatever I used on these. So I kind of think but then if it doesn't come out like a precise flower, that's going to frustrate me. So I don't know, maybe I'm just going to do my typical thing. Feather stitch still feels like my go-to, and then I can add other stuff. I kind of envision this where you'll still see stuff in the background, and maybe I'll just kind of avoid my blotches so that they'll still show. But I kind of picture this outside just to be covered with texture from the stitch. No beads, just covered with texture from the stitch, and then the inside will have the embroidered panels. So let's just see, what's the worst that could happen is that we have to unpick it, right? Because it's not like I haven't done that a gazillion times before. All right, I need a needle. Now, I could have been nicely organized and had this all picked out ahead of time, but then you wouldn't see my back and forth stuff that I do in my brain every single time I sit down to stitch. And I tell you, I was wide awake all night long. I have no idea why, but it was, I remember still seeing the clock tick over past 3 a.m. this morning. And it wasn't like, I was feeling in pain or I was having any problems. I think it was just my brain had so many ideas going on that I just couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. All right, I'm going to start. I know I'm going to have, I should kind of, okay, I don't want to should on myself, but one thing I could do is mark where these guys are going to go, but I don't think I'm going to do that. All right, and this is, I'll make sure I'm on the right side. This side versus, yeah. So I want to stitch on this side because this is going to be my outside. And I'm just going to start. I'm just going to start. There is nothing, pretty much, unless I, cut a hole in the universe, there is nothing I can't usually put back to rights with some more stitching. Even if I, clip stuff out and then I have to cover the spots that stuff didn't want to come out or what have you, I'm not going to worry about that kind of thing. If I'm not going to couch right away, I tend to go to a feather stitch just because, like how I got that in there, just because it lets me get some movement happening across the fabric. And movement is good. Movement implies there is something on the fabric that's going from point A to point B. What direction do I want to go? I'm going to kind of curve a little bit, see if I can do it kind of wavy. And movement, if there's something in the fabric that's making that movement happen, then gives you a layer of texture. And of course, with a feather stitch, there's so many things you can do. Like knot it up. But I mean, you can come back later and you can add branches off of here. You can add little French knots. You can add beads. You can do all of the above. We all have our favorite go-to stitches. I realize that I tend to use the same few stitches over and over again, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I do want to kind of start exploring some different things eventually. I mean, the ideas never even out to the amount of time that I have in my days, right? And I know I'm not alone in that. I know it. But that's okay, right? We get to pick and choose. At least I'm very grateful that at this point in my life, I get to pick and choose, from the most part, where I spend my days. And, for a long time, of course, I didn't get to. And when I was a young mother, my time was, of course, dictated by children. So it's nice now to know that I can spend my days doing something that makes me happy. And then I can hopefully, share the work and inspire other people to do things that make them happy. I want to try and not go in a straight line here. Because eventually everything will crisscross all over the place, hopefully, unless I get bored. If I get bored, then I'll just stop. But I just kind of want to see how much texture I can create with my stitch. And I know I can create a lot. Plus, I needed something that was slightly bigger that I could work on in the evenings. Because if you're working on a lot of small things, then you finish them quickly, which is nice, except that, if you're sitting on the TV, on the couch watching the TV for a couple of hours, maybe you want something that's going to take more than an hour to finish, which is usually why I have so many things going. Now, if you are a very precise person, your feather stitches will look all nice and even. Mine never do, but then rarely is my feather stitch just seen on its own. Usually I'm coming back in and doing something else. Now this fabric, it's, I think it was a linen, maybe placemat that I took apart and then did some coffee or tea dyeing on it. And so it's kind of stiff and I don't have a stabilizer on it. And I hope I don't regret that, but I'm going to give it a shot. Once I start doing bullion knots, sometimes I get frustrated if I don't have a stabilizer. So if that creates a problem, then I will just add something to the back and that's okay too. Or maybe I'll just cover it all with feather stitch and French knots. I could do that and do my bullion knots on my little lace pieces. Yeah. So just wandering across the fabric. So we've had a lot of fabulous projects being shared in the Facebook group. I love that. If you are one of the Secret Squirrel watchers and you're in the Facebook group, I hope you're getting inspired too. No matter whether you're a Secret Squirrel or not, I hope you're getting inspired. It's just so nice to see so many different levels of creativity being shared with each other. You know, we're talking about how, I mean, paper crafters can be inspired by things that fabric artists do, and poets can be inspired by a painting they've seen. There's not a limit on creativity that said, well, if you saw this painting, then the only thing you can do is go off and do another painting. No, don't let limits like that pull you down. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the rest of the world that needs to see your creativity. Because yes, the rest of the world needs to see it. I don't care if you are making, you know, a card that has only 3 pieces of paper and a red dot in the center of it. That means you are being creative. You know, it's not necessarily high art that's going to go in a gallery, but most of the people I know are not creating art that goes in a gallery. They are creating art that fills a need for themselves. And if they're filling that need for themselves, that means they're being true to themselves. They're being an authentic creator. And if you're being an authentic creative person, it sort of comes across in the energy you put out in the world. You know, when I was writing books, I took on a lot of work for hire books because I needed the money. And by that, it meant that I was given just some guidelines, usually some very loose guidelines, like you have 150 words to write about polar bears and the potential for extinction, and it has to be at a kindergarten level, and the sentences can't have more than 5 words in them. That's a lot. That's a lot to try and break down to that area. And so, you know, I did the work, and the books were published and I got my checks, but it wasn't authentic work. It wasn't being true to me because, you know, polar bears are kind of cool, but they weren't something that I was super passionate about. And so the work was not, like I said, it just wasn't my most authentic work. Oh, why do I do this every time? Weren't you guys yelling at me not to make that end piece so tiny? So frustrating. And when I was teaching the young men in prison, teaching poetry, try being surrounded by a room full of a dozen young men, 16, 17 years old, that were in prison for murder, and being told, we're going to teach you how to write poetry. But because poetry was something I absolutely loved, it was a little bit easier for me to be my authentic self, even though I was sometimes quaking in my boots. That was quite an experience. I learned that my long hair could not be hanging down because it was too easy for them to grab. I learned wearing long earrings was not advisable, and in fact I didn't wear any earrings. There were certain colors that I couldn't wear in my clothes because they were gang colors, and you know, I had to go look them up because I didn't know what they were. But I will tell you that once I started sharing my own work and how it had changed me, and I got those guys, you know, thinking about doing something on their own, I saw some of the most amazing poems coming out of that place. I love this vein right here, so I don't know if I want to cover it up. I'm just going to come over here to the side a little bit. You'll notice I don't think you've ever seen me, I know you haven't seen me, put a pattern onto the cloth to follow. It's not to say that that is not a wonderful way to do embroidery. I think I still haven't gotten over some knee-jerk negative experiences from childhood, so I haven't done that. But I might try. I'm thinking about experimenting with some of my pictures that I have taken in the past of birds when I was really into identifying the birds in our garden. And I think that might be kind of interesting. But that's also getting kind of realistic, and I don't normally do things that are very realistic. So, I don't know. Every day a new adventure. Right now there is so much lace all around on the floor all around me because I was trying to figure out what I was going to put on those panels. And the dog is in heaven because if there's fabric on the floor, then she figures it must be her new bed. So that means then if I'm going to use any of the stuff that's on the floor, I've got to get it clean before I can start stitching with it. I did actually give her a little piece of fabric of her own, and it's just like I don't know, it's just like a 6-inch square. And she just treats that as though it's like this big furry comfy blanket that she can cuddle her huge 75-pound body into. My good old girl who's going deaf, and I just don't even want to contemplate a life without her. All right, let's see. Which way do I want to go? I think I'm just going to come here and just kind of curve it. Because again, this is just going to be some random stitching. Been trying to think about how I can combine some of my poetry with my art. I can do it on, I have done it in the past where I've put it onto single pieces of wall art, but I'm kind of playing with this idea of doing a little ebook because I have something that tells a story, a short story in 30 poems. And so I was thinking about doing some art and putting the poems in there, and I don't know. Ideas are not ever the problem. It's always time, right? I shouldn't say never. Rarely do I meet somebody who says, I don't have any ideas. Because often what that means is they have ideas, but they don't know where to start with them, which we all have that, or they don't feel like they are capable of doing whatever that idea is going to be. And then you got to just play. I've got a bunch of stuff spread out on the island in the studio to just do some experiments and just to play around and see where it's going to take me. Who knows? And a lot of times the experiments go into bigger projects, and sometimes they just become experiments and you say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Or I tried that in that color and I didn't realize how that color really didn't excite me as much. I was trying to work on a brand new piece in some colors, because I had the materials. I was trying to work on them in some colors that they just weren't exciting to me. And I kept saying, well, I can just use this to practice. Well, no, no. Even practice should be fun to a certain extent. At least I think so. Why am I going to practice? Why am I going to put in hours and hours of practice with pale pink when it's something where I just kind of go, yeah, it's okay. It's just not my color. It's pretty in flowers. No. So instead, I set aside some of those colors that I was less than excited about and said, those will be some good ones to dye, because then I can turn them into colors that I actually want to work with. That is the way my brain is going. So it's just a little start here with some feather stitch, and I think I'm just going to work a lot in this color for a little bit. Probably some more feather stitch that's going to kind of zigzag all over the place, and then I'm going to pick another stitch and see where it's going to take me next. Who knows? Okay, I'm going to leave myself a little bit more room this time to do a knot. I'm happy with where that's going to end. Okay, off to a good start.